This is Divine Lifestyles with Tara Magalski. What is a divine lifestyle? Passion, purpose, and living in alignment with your truth. Thanks for tuning into Divine Lifestyles, transforming your life with purpose. On this show, we share stories of healing and transformation that feed your spirit, mind, and body. I'm your host, Tara Magalski, and today's guest is the legendary Cornerman, Dr. Jeff Spencer. You are.
Well, I'm ready to jump in the ring. Let's go.
You are. You really, really are. I'm so excited for him to be the guest today. But thank you so much, Jeff, for being here and taking the time out of your busy schedule.
It's so my pleasure. Thanks again. Looking forward to it.
So Dr. Jeff Spencer, really, he has done it all, but I'll just give you his short bio, and that is that he has been a leader in the high-performance field for over 40 years. Using his Champions Blueprint high achievement performance model, he has helped athletes win gold medals, rock stars go platinum, businessmen make their next $1 million, and thought leaders move to the next level. Jeff really is a Renaissance man because he is a member of the 1972 United States Olympic cycling team, has a master's degree in sports medicine from USC, was a team doctor for 9, not just one, 9 Tour de France teams, and has shown his glass sculptures throughout the United States. So, Jeff, as you know, the moment that I heard you speak at Archangel, I ran up to you and I had tears in my eyes and I said, oh my goodness, you know, you sharing that story when you were in the Olympics really touched me. And I'll tell you guys, I had the honor of spending a weekend with him in California for a Champions Blueprint workshop, which, Jeff, by the way, was one of the best weekends of my life. It was so awesome. I spent the entire weekend going, how did I get here? Swear to God, I was like, how did this happen? I've got like this Elton John's guy to my left. I've got an Olympic winner to my right. People surround. What? But what was really special is that weekend really gave me a glimpse into who you really are as a man, not just about all these accomplishments that you have accomplished and how successful you are, really drew me into your world. So I just want to say thank you for that. And
Pleasure.
For anyone who's listening, it's a treat. So he will tell you a little bit later how you can join as well.
Thank you.
So as I learned throughout the weekend that you had a very interesting childhood and you worked very, very, very hard to get to where you are today. And I think I said to you during the weekend, I think everything you touch, Uncle Jeff, turns to gold.
Well,
what is that about? What's your secret? And then Really? Yeah. So I want to talk a little bit about that. And I want to just start off for the listeners, just talking a little bit about who you are and how you were raised and about your childhood.
Well, that's a great place to start. And first off to say here is that, lives of prolific performance, they're not accidents. They're very deliberate outcomes of a structure that's consistently applied. And so I had the good fortune of kind of going through my own process to be able to see what that was up close and personal and to be able to connect the dots. And it really all started when I was, I guess, 6 or 7 years old. I used to go outside by myself and I'd hit my little baseball up and down the street. In the morning, it was dark, everybody else was sleeping, and I just thought about the Olympics. I thought the coolest thing ever would be to be an Olympian that walked into the Olympic Stadium on opening day and made that right turn onto the track and everybody went crazy. But I had a very interesting observation, is that the biggest and the baddest Olympians didn't win. And it seemed like the guys that were the biggest and the baddest should, but they didn't. And so I took note of that, and it happened with such regularity that it couldn't be an accident. There was something behind it. And the ones that did win, that shouldn't win on paper, they knew something about life and themselves the others didn't. And I didn't know what that was, but I sure wanted to know because of my Olympic aspirations. And then when I was 13, I competed in my very first national cycling championship. And then the next year, my parents, unfortunately, they got divorced. It was a very difficult period for me for a lot of different reasons. And we went on welfare. And my dad, who was a genius, was the last time I saw him. And I found out 30 years later that he died homeless on the streets of New York City. And so that was another really important moment for me because I saw that there was a myth here. And that was if you want it bad enough, it's going to happen. And that with enough will and talent that you're going to get to the top and stay there. And neither one of those were true because if they were, then my dad would have become what he could have been and left a massive legacy that the world would have been astonished by his capacity. But instead, he became someone known as someone who could and didn't. And the silver lining to that significant period for me that was extremely challenging were the mentors that came into my life, and they were non-denominational. They came from sport, they came from business, they came from stage, they came from every walk of life, but they shared with me their secrets on how they became iconic. But I saw the pattern again. They didn't have the pedigree. They didn't graduate from the most prestigious institutions. They didn't have the best pedigrees, but yet they were always first in line to grab the brass ring when it showed up. While the more capable on paper people were still scratching their heads in bewilderment, like, why are these people always the people that show up and capitalize on the opportunity, and I'm not even ready yet? So I wondered about that, and I applied the structure that they had shared with me and the strategies and tactics. So I did become an Olympian, as you mentioned. So I did have a first taste at what's possible at the top, and I learned a lot from that because I learned what it takes to get to the top and stay there. And unless you've been at the highest level, you can't possibly understand it. And to excel at the highest level, it's a matter of 1 or 2%. And without having lived it, those nuances remain elusive. So I had the advantage of being there, and I understand it. And I did go to a prestigious university where I got my master's degree in sports science. So I understand the body and how to craft a body that's got the power to push when we got to push. I also understand how to craft a body and create the health that's necessary to be in the game long enough to be able to mature into the best that you can be. And so I got to ask a lot of questions by people in sports and business and on stage. Well, how do I become my own champion? And how do I get fit to be able to step into what I have to do and be able to have the physical capacity to manifest the action steps to achieve my highest goals? And they also asked me, well, what about injury prevention and management? What about health? How do I get and stay well? So I said, you know what, I'm going to go back to college. So I went back to chiropractic school. I'd been out of graduate school for 10 years, and I got my chiropractic licensure to become a primary healthcare provider, which gave me kind of a three-pillared platform. Number one, I understood what it took to get to the top, being an Olympian. I knew the body because of my master's degree. I knew how to get and stay well because of my chiropractic experience. And I was, by the way, 2004 International Sports Chiropractor of the Year. So I was pretty accomplished in that area as well. And so I became a one-stop Jiffy Lubing place to go to be able to learn what I need to do to craft a personal program and structure to get to the top and stay there. And so with that, over the last 40 years, I've helped people win gold medals. I've helped people move to the thought leadership space up to the top of that, and also platinum records, as you had mentioned. And so I saw what happened, that there emerged a structure. And so I sat down one day and I said, can I actually draw what this looks like? Because if I can draw the process by which I was intuitively guiding people to the top, but also staying there, then I could create a method out of it that other people could study and follow to become their own champions. And so when I sat at that restaurant, I took out a pen and I drew on the back of a napkin exactly what this looked like. I realized that there were 8 steps that universally every prolific performer went through in sports, business, on stage, and in life itself, to develop the capacity to be able to achieve their champion goals, not just their average goals and not their gutsy goals, but their champion goals consistently while avoiding preventable problems without losing time or momentum. So that process and those 8 steps became the champion's blueprint that allows me to identify where someone is, and if we can locate where they are, we know what to do to move forward. It allows us to identify the patterns, those problematic patterns of thought and behavior that will absolutely take us out of the game. It's also showed me the patterns that we can apply to the principles that can be applied to the pattern to neutralize the pattern or those bad behaviors to allow us to gain acceleration, to move forward, to achieve our goals in the least time with least effort, least expense. And finally, since the steps were revealed to me over 40 years of being in this space, they're sequential. And if we can identify which step you're in, then we can predict the future because history's already told us what it is. So your readiness is, if you know a pothole's coming, which you do, you step around it. Most people step into it. If you know an opportunity that will present itself, you're ready for it. So when it shows up, you seize it, and you add it to your archive of successes that are creating your legacy and process. So that's the origin of the Champion's Blueprint. That's all I think about right now. I'm only interested in one thing, gold medals for people in business and in sport and in life, so that they can live a life of just massive passion. They can just bring an immense amount of purpose of their lives and just be incredibly productive and also be prosperous. So that's kind of the Cliff Notes version of how I got from there to here.
Woo! I know. And it is, I will say, it is so comprehensive. Your program is comprehensive. So
Thank
if
you.
we had to, it's amazing. But to just scale it back for some people who might be listening, because it is so advanced. I've gone through the process. I actually have it right here above me. I do. I should pull it down right now. I should, because why not? And I keep it here, and I keep it here on purpose so that you can see it. Can you see it?
Yeah, it's beautiful.
Yeah, and as I work through it, I say, okay, what am I in? What am I in? Where am I heading next? Where am I heading next? And it is something I find with this. It takes a lot of life experience. Now, talk to us a little bit about that. Like, I know you want to talk about, are we born winners? So let's talk about someone who was born with a great upbringing, who has maybe an easier life map ahead of them versus someone who was born on welfare and whatnot. You don't think that there's any difference? Like, there is a process.
Yes, I do. In both welfare and privilege, both carry their same challenge, because success isn't what we think it is. It's not about thinking better thoughts. It's not about trying harder. It sounds really good, but it's not about that. It's about, we need to create a vessel that we can hold our dream in, that allows us to negotiate through life's minefield to manifestation, is really what that is. And so it's a different structure. And, again, we have to be mindful that will and talent aren't enough. There are many myths that we subscribe to that we believe will get us to the promised land that won't, and history hasn't proven it, but they seem so right, but they deliver so wrong. And so a key point about this is that I believe that we're born to win, and I believe that winning does matter. And the reason why I say that is that I've never met a person that can wait to get up and fail. I've never seen it. I know people that feel a gap between where they are and where they know they could be, and they live lives of desperation and uncertainty and frustration as a result of that. But again, there's a structure, which is the Champion's Blueprint, that allows us, again, to kind of take and cultivate and grow our capacity systematically so that we can progressively move through the process to gain mastery over what has to get done to be able to create a life of distinction and purpose and contribution.
Now, do you think that I briefly talked to you about this at the weekend, but did you find that you were always born with a very clear, like a sense of clarity? Because you knew at a very young age that you wanted to be an Olympian.
Yes, but the path to that was unclear. I think we all have an inclination towards something that we would love to have and manifest and be part of. But that's not the path to get there. And what I saw with those that can and did versus those that can and didn't was what they knew about the process. And it wasn't the technical side of the discipline. We can look at being a doctor, a lawyer, or whatever, and we can say, well, there's an academic process by which we go through to qualify for that. But it's not a guarantee that you're going to manifest the highest level of that. That's outside of that domain. And my observation is that nobody's born with that process. We're really born with a fear-based survival instinct that's our primal decision maker. It gets first dibs at every bit of information. And as long as we operate out of making our decisions on what we stand to lose, then don't plan on a life of distinction. But there's a whole other set of decision-making references that the champions have discovered that they apply that allows them to deal with the exact same pressures everybody deals with, but to do it purposefully with success to carry momentum forward.
This reminds me a little bit of, I just started reading Malcolm Gladwell's Outliers.
Mm-hmm.
And the principles of, working 10,000 hours. How would you say that this is similar to his theory?
Well, I think it does take 10,000 hours to create critical mass, but maybe you can do it in one or two. And it's like what I've observed is that if you do the 1% to 2% that really matters, then you gain access to the 98% that counts. So I'm not an 80-20 guy. 80-20 is not a good enough percentage for me. 1%, 2% to get 98% is true. And if you have a method that allows you to cut through the stuff that keeps most of us stuck, then maybe 10,000 hours will be 2,000 hours instead. So the timelines are perhaps unassisted, just labor, where you dream big and you work hard to close the gap.
Yes, which is where most of us are, right?
Yes, and that's also where most of us get stuck, because this is the dream and here's the effort, and we got this empty space that's mostly congested with the stuff of life that doesn't allow us to move forward. And for some reason, we just can't seem to get beyond it, no matter how much and how hard we try. And so to me, managing the space is the whole deal, so that you're able to carry momentum forward to get to where you need to go as quickly as possible. But then you extend your timeline to evolve yourself, to mature into what you can be, and be able to perform at that level consistently to create a massive legacy in life of distinction and contribution.
So tell us what the difference is between a cornerman and a coach or a mentor.
I think that's really a great question. In life, nobody can win alone, first and foremost. We need a team. And in our teams, we all need a series of advisors, those people that can help shortcut our learning curve so that we can move forward more quickly. And there are three advisors, at least in my observation, that we need as part of our team. There's the coach, and the coach is that person that's highly specialized in a very specialized area. It's like a very thin slice of our pie that makes up our entire life. And their whole job is to help teach us a method in some particular area to be delivered and achieved at a certain point in the future. And so we get together with them on a prescribed schedule, half an hour a week or an hour every 2 weeks, whatever it is. And it's X amount of dollars to do that. And then at the end of the program, then you've learned the skill to apply, but they don't know anything about the rest of your life. And so where you're vulnerable is the rest of the life, maybe the thing that takes you out of the game. And you can be any age to be a coach. Like my best iPhone coach is my daughter. She's 16 and a half. She's great. But I wouldn't go to her for life advice, And so then there's the mentor, who's a little bit older, maybe a little bit more bandwidth, a little bit more scar tissue, and they've kind of been around, but they're still kind of a specialist in an area. You can have like a financial mentor, you can have a fitness mentor, etc. They can hold your hand to the promised land, but again, it's only a small slice of what life's richness is made up of. And so again, they only know part of your life, they don't know the rest of it. So who's kind of orchestra conducting the whole entirety of your personal universe to make decisions about the problems that you're creating now that can be avoided, and about seizing opportunities that are in the future? And that's that person I call the cornerman, which is the rarest of all species, because they're the most difficult to find. And they're a person that's been extremely successful in many areas, so they know what it's like. They've helped people in many areas become extraordinarily successful. They're always there. They can read life's patterns. They're interested in legacies, not just temporary goals or small little successes. And they're the people that you can bring just a massively complex set of circumstances, and they can read the pattern and say, oh yeah, well, all of these circumstances mean this, and this is the one thing that you need to do to be able to move forward. And that's the cornerman, the rarest of all species. I think a great example of that would be in the movie Rocky. Rocky had the cornerman Mickey, and when Rocky was getting put on the mat, Mick just said, hey, Rock, you got to move to the left, and we'll see you after the round. And that's how he became world champion. And so again, in my mind, everybody needs the cornerman. They're usually older, they're over 60. Because they have the experience in all the areas. You need a certain amount of life toughening to be able to see the global universe, not just the specialty in a certain area. That to me is a great cornerman is worth, 20 great mentors or coaches.
Now, who's your corner man?
That's a tough one. I'm certainly many other people's cornermans, but for me, I have two or three people that are in my life that bring just an immense amount of richness to me. I have one that's an expert in healthcare, but we can talk about anything. I've got someone in the high performance world that we could talk about anything. And so those are the people that I kind of work with, and I do regular visits and time, with them just to make sure that we're weeding the garden so that there's nothing on the horizon that could grow into something big and take me out of the game or block me from pursuing or achieving some certain goal that I'm currently involved with.
So over the years, you've had a few different defining moments. I would say you had them as you were younger and learning a lot about you over the weekend. It seemed that you had probably like 3 or 4. And most recently, you had one with your health as well.
Yeah, I
With the
did.
Mercury.
Yeah, I did.
I bring that up only because I just want to ask what are the challenges that you have faced and what have you done to overcome them?
I'm going to list three that just come to mind as far as those pivotal moments. After my parents got divorced, it was a very turbulent time for me. And I had a mentor when I was 18, and I met him when he was 76, if you could believe that. He was born in 1892. He's a Victorian, and I was having a really bad day, and so he asked me if I wanted a helping hand. I said, man, how does this guy know? I said, yeah, if there's ever a day to ask, today's the day. And he said, well, if you want a helping hand, you got one at the end of each arm. And he turned around and walked out of the room. He left me by myself, and that was exactly the right thing to do because he wasn't going to intervene, and he loved me enough to believe in me that I would figure out a way to get beyond my predicament, and I would develop self-confidence in my ability to find my way from that moment forward. So he did exactly the right thing. Another example was with the health challenge for Mercury. I mean, I was literally dying. I could feel my life force draining from my body. And I had a lot of false starts because I went to all the experts and they were 100% clueless as to what the problem was. And so I had the first inkling when I was in Australia for the 2000 Sydney Olympics. And I had the suspicion that it was mercury poisoning from a homeopath that it turned out to be. It took me 3 to 5 years to get beyond it. I had a postgraduate education and what it's like to have chronic illness and what it takes to get over it. But the point is about this, the most vital moment is that I was completely subservient to it. It's not like an opponent I could jump into the ring and beat into submission. As an Olympian, you beat the opponent up and you win. This wasn't like that. You had to play by the rules with no guarantee of any better future. You were only subservient to showing up for duty and doing the action steps that would perhaps, but no guarantee, get you better. I spent 3 to 5 years doing that. I continued to consult at that time. But that's where it taught me that you absolutely have to play by the rules, and you can think whatever you want, but if the rules aren't what they are, you're still going to have a very difficult life. The next pivotal moment was just about 7 years ago, when at the age of 58, I adopted a 10-year-old girl with my wife from Colombia, who every moment of her life was most everybody's worst moment ever. And that's what her life was like. Comes from an extremely hard place. I wouldn't wish what she was exposed to on anybody, but it taught me several things. It taught me that you can love anybody. You just show up and you do it. You don't need a special set of conditions. It also taught me that there's always enough energy to do anything on behalf of other people. And finally, what it taught me, another life pivotal moment, is that you can do everything for a person and you can give them everything that you got, but it may not be enough to get them beyond their past and the challenges that need to be fought at a different level. And that's, to me, where God comes into it, where God can do for us what we can't do for ourselves. So we remain, humbly subservient to that option that should always be considered and engaged as part of our life. And so those are some massively important pivotal moments for me that were life-changing.
Well, let's talk a little bit about your faith or spirituality, because from the moment I met you, I got a real sense, just my intuition, that you were very connected to something greater than yourself, just by the way you spoke, the way you conducted yourself. And I would love for you to just share with people who, because I know a lot of people listening, they struggle, they don't have a spiritual foundation. So could you share a bit about yours?
Yeah, I most certainly can. Just to say that I've always been intrigued by this. I've always felt that there's something bigger out there that's creating the natural rhythms and the patterns and the celestial bodies and things like that, that there is an orchestrator behind this. This design isn't by accident. It's too majestic. It's too complex. There's too much order in this to just be an accident. So I thought about this really a lot. And it's like I was asked here recently, and I thought about what do I want to be known for as an individual? And the thing that came to me is that I want to be known as a person that answered the call. Meaning that I'm not afraid to show up and change if I get the call, marching orders. I did that with the Olympics. I was an Olympian, on a way to greatness, but I got a different calling after my first Olympics where I needed to stay in academics. And so I stayed with that, and I was able to create a massive service to other people through that. And then there was my artistic period that I was doing while I was professional as a chiropractor, et cetera. And I showed my work in the best galleries in New York City and the best shows around the world. And, that again was another chapter for me where I've just been obedient, where I've showed up responsibly, not recklessly. And I've always had a personal petition to get the guidance, to be able to know what to be of service, to show what human are capable of, and to be able to be there for other people. It's been always very easy for me. And so there's a constant level of devotion and communing with that to make sure that I've got an internal guidance system that's bigger than myself. And I'm more than happy to remain subservient to whatever that is. And I guess a demonstration of that is when we adopted our daughter at 58. I was 58, which means literally every waking moment of my life from this moment forward is dedicated to raising her. And, people thought I was crazy, and, maybe so, but you got to make your life count for something. And I think there's also an important thing for me is that, this world's a tough place, and there are no exemptions. That everybody's going to have to face the boogeyman at some point, and they're going to have dark and deep and severe moments that are extraordinarily challenging. And, it's never been within me to challenge the assumption of the why behind it. I always felt that there was an order there that I would play a role in that perhaps wasn't just about me, but a more important order in terms of how the world churns on and goes through its evolutionary process. And the one thing that I will say about this is that to stay connected, especially in today's rapidly, dramatically changing world, really demands a purposeful vigilance where we have to make deliberate time to commune with the greater source of creativity and love and passion and healing and all the things that just speak of life's mystery and also of life's miracle. And I don't think that it's something that comes naturally to us. I mean, it doesn't come naturally to me. I have a natural inquiry. I have a natural willingness to be able to go with the marching orders, but to be able to seek in calm moments and have that personal interface with this, it's something I have to work towards and I have to apply every day. And so,
yeah, me as well. Do you do that through meditation, through prayer, through affirmation, music? What's your
that's
tool?
a great question. Yeah, well, there's a couple of tools. I mean, I do Qigong every day, which is an ancient form of traditional meditation. I do that for the body to also still the mind so that I can be present now to hear the whisperings of the Great One, so to speak. And there is prayer and petition for certain things that if it be the will, that it be enacted. And, my faith is such that it's an active living process. We do regularly engage as a family in, regular religious activity. Every morning I read my daughter some things about what's relevant in that world to her. And, as long as she's listening, I know that she's going to be okay. So, you do have to pursue it. And I think that it's got to be an openness. There's got to be a an appeal, for guidance and power and strength and certainty and vision. And there has to be a receptivity for that so that you can get that level of inflow. And I've always felt that it's not an asking, it's really a petition for guidance and strength and clarity to be able to place a value into the obedience for showing up, and wherever that leads is wherever it leads. I've always felt that it's bigger than me, and wherever that is, that's okay with me, as long as it's what the Divine One, wants for us. I'm more than happy to show up for duty for that.
I couldn't help but notice that you didn't share exactly what it is. Would you mind sharing exactly what the readings are?
Oh, I can. It's called Jesus Calling. It's a beautiful
Awesome.
book, and it
Wonderful.
was revelations from a woman who had just a profound series of tragedies in her life that put her on a separate path where she connected into the Christian faith, and there were these moments of intense clarity and revelation that she had gotten, and this is called Jesus Calling. And it's a book that reflects, my faith, and it also reflects the values that I believe for my daughter are necessary for her to move forward to become the person that she's capable of being.
Yeah. I asked that because I had a feeling, but I do want our listeners to know that. I'd love to share with you that that is my faith as well. But I have also felt that being my age in this generation and being online, that sometimes, how do I want to say this? We kind of are embarrassed by that faith because of kind of where culturally the New Age movement is going. So a lot of times I will feel that I can't express myself fully in my faith. And I'm really working on that to really come forward and share. So that's kind of why I pressed into you a little bit. Because I think it's really important, because
it is.
I believe that I was called to share stories and also share some truths, some universal truths that I know to be true through my experience.
Yes.
And if I do that, then I've answered the call. So
Agreed.
Yeah.
Agreed. And just if I could just add something to that, it's like, yes, it is difficult because, that's kind of like the punching bag these days. But it's not, I can see it as being a certain, recoil to certain behaviors of people that perhaps speak in certain ways, but aren't really through spirit representatives of what that really is. And so I think that there are always some challenges with that. But I think what's really important for us as individuals is that let's not look at other people. Really the mission is, what about us, and what is our model, and what is our belief in terms of what value we need to bring to other people, and what are the thorns that we have that disable us from being who we could be and being able to be a beacon of hope and sanity and courage in today's rapidly and dramatically changing world. And that's the way that I've always looked at it. It's like, I feel like everybody's interface with God and the divine is kind of like their business. My business is to make sure that I'm clear on me, and that I am in constant refinement of kind of debreeding myself of things that don't enable me to represent the highest level of service and what spirituality in a living sense really means to people. So I really appreciate, what you say. And, we're in a challenging time.
Yeah. I just, as you were speaking, because I told you this when I came up to you after the weekend, I said, well, what is it? What's your secret? You've answered me what the secret is, because I said, how does this man go from going from an Olympian, then now he's doing the Champion Blueprint, but all the Tour de France, everything. I said, there's this man has got a special calling on his life, and it's very clear to me that your life is anointed by your surrendering to a power greater than yourself. It's very clear to me now what your secret is.
Well, I believe that that's true, and it's like I can't answer why. I just have a willingness to do that. I'm not conflicted at all, and I'm more than happy people say, well, aren't you sacrificing? And I don't feel like that. I feel like the sacrifice isn't to answer the call or not to follow your inquiry or your curiosity. To me, I believe that that's really the sacrifice. So, thanks for your kind thoughts and your
Yeah.
generosity and being able to kind of draw this out of me.
Thank you for
It's a
sharing.
good job.
So let's talk a little bit about actionable tips that someone can take. Because I know that you say, how do we achieve these goals? What do you do on a daily basis, a practice that someone who's listening can implement tomorrow?
Yeah, I think just a couple of things here that I think are really key is that we kind of need to define our goals and how they fit into our life. I mean, quite honestly, the goal creation, that's the easy part. The difficult part is it the right goal at the right time? Is it something I should move forward on? And so for me, there's a couple of things I think are really important is that when we look at our goal, we kind of decide what life area that is. And let's say our goal is in business. If we write a legacy statement about business, meaning I'm standing here today, and if I look forward to the end on the current trajectory I'm on, what type of legacy am I actually going to leave in terms of business? And is it the legacy that I want to leave? Yes or no? And if it's not, then I could decide what I want that legacy to be. And then every goal that I look at or every opportunity that I'm considering, I measure that against the legacy and see if it's going to take me closer to the legacy that I want to leave. And legacy is a big deal for me because it's really an immortal footprint. It's our personal case study that we're going to live on human history, that will live in the history books for eternity, that shows other people what we do with our time and our talents. And that's a big deal for me because it is a certain sense our immortality that we leave behind. So legacy is really important. And that statement also acts as an integrity filter, and that every consideration kind of gets run through the filter. And if the goal that we're considering takes us towards that, then it's a goal we're pursuing. The second thing that I suggest people do is that they have a vision of what they will be like once their goal is achieved. So we look at the goal and we say, when it's achieved, what's that going to do for me, and how do I see myself in terms of the visceral five senses? Like, what do I look like? Do I carry myself with a certain amount of appreciation and reverence and gratitude for the process? There's something about me that people find intriguing, that want to know what it is that I did and how I did it. Hey, that's a great thing. How do I smell? What's the scent do I have on me with this goal achievement? Is my scent of believability and credibility? It is, and it's probably a good goal to pursue. What are the words that I speak and how do they sound to others? Are they inviting? Are they condemning? Is it something that speaks to them of an invitation to join and elevate? How do I sound to others? Are my words inviting? Is my presence one that invites people to join the conversation? Or is it a repulsion? And how do I feel about me once the goal is achieved? Do I feel like I'm in a position to be able to be of greater influence to help other people become their own champions? Yes or no? So when we look at our goal achieved through that vision, does it really fit what we want and we believe it will convey to us? And if so, then it's a goal worth pursuing. And I think those are two really critical things that really need to be looked at before any goal is actually implemented, first and foremost.
Yeah, you have to think it through and
feel it, man,
and walk through it right to the end.
Yep. And it's like, I've seen it a lot. People go to medical school. This hasn't got nothing to do with medical school, but to only say that I knew someone that did that, and at the end that they were disappointed because it wasn't what they thought, but they didn't do the vetting on it to confirm what the reality of it really was before doing this massive amount of investment of time and energy. Again, it's not about medical school. It's just saying, have we done enough consultation on what it is that we're considering to be really certain about it being the appropriate goal for us to pursue at this time?
So what do you think it takes to be a champion?
There's several things. Number one, you have to show up on time and not be conditional about when you put the effort in. Number two, You have to be able to share and applaud and participate in other people's successes. You have to make sure that you have the ability to pick yourself up off the ground, because if you're not experiencing turbulence and some difficulty, then you're living life way too much in the safe zone. So I think it's important that we have goals that are perhaps just outside our reach a bit, because if they're outside our reach a little bit, we're probably capable of them. We've just never been there before. We need to be coachable. We need to be able to seek out and follow sound counsel. We need to have a resiliency and a capacity to respect the process. We need to be thankful to our team. You need to create and assemble a great team that can do for you. You can't do for yourself. You've got to be able to manage inventories to make sure that you are accountable and you're managing your resources carefully. You've got to know when to push. You've got to know when to pause. You must not cave to the idea that it's honorable to kill yourself trying to get somewhere, because it's not. And you must always engage in something that has a value outside of yourself that can contribute to other people. And so those are like the attributes that I've seen in all the prolific performers that run at the top of any discipline.
Yeah. And it touches a lot on the blueprint and how the map works. So what is the goal? What's next for the Champion Blueprint? Where do you see you taking this in the next, let's say, 5 years?
Yeah, that's a great question. Well, right now it's at a point where it's been evolved enough. It's been really difficult for me to take what I've done instinctively over 40 years to be able to create a program that people can follow to become their own champions. But I've got to that point where I've really, I believe, got it mastered to be able to move this forward, at least with version 1. So it's going to be finding its way into the public domain here fairly quickly. And I have big hopes for it, because I know that any conventional model that we use to develop ourselves that's specific to our goal, unless we have something complementary to that to be able to hold the goal in a sacred vessel to again be ushered through the challenges of life, which are more likely to take us out of the game, the likelihood of getting to our bigger future is pretty remote. So there'll be online programs, there will be continuing workshops, there will be probably a certification for Cornerman that will be happening. So there's a lot of reason to be extraordinarily optimistic. And, my hope is that this can find its way into hopefully every institution, and hopefully every program that's out there will make this an companion piece to that, so that makes the person more capable of being able to take whatever program they're pursuing and being able to execute it more fully to get the most value out of that. So that's the projection.
So this is a workbook. Do you see this ever being a book?
Yes, there's actually a book proposal that's already been accepted with the agent.
Okay.
And so we're just looking for the right time to be able to shop it around, to be able to get the right publisher to do that. So, my guess is that probably 12 to 18 months that the book will be out. And I've got the world's best agent, and very happy with the proposal, and very confident in the value that this will bring people.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah, thanks.
And the book, will it be just as comprehensive, or will it be more of a teaser to dive deeper?
It's not going to be a teaser. I'm not a guy that withholds anything. When I'm around people, I have 2 promises. Number 1, you'll get everything that I've got, and you're always going to know what to do. That's my promise to everybody. And so it will be full and in-depth and comprehensive enough to be able to gain traction, to be able to move forward towards your bigger future, which is what I'm dedicated to.
I love it. Oh, you are a little angel.
Well, thanks.
You are.
There's a little devil in there,
You have a very anointed life and legacy here. So I just honor that is in you.
Thank you.
So where should our listeners go to learn more about the Champions Blueprint Coaching Program, possibly book you for speaking events, or work with you personally?
Yeah, great. Well, the epicenter for that is my website, which is www.drjeffspencer.com. That's DRJEFF. SPENCER.com. That will be the epicenter for sure.
Awesome. Thank you so much for taking the time
Such a
to
pleasure.
stop by today. And for everyone who's listening, please remember, if you like the messages that I'm bringing to you on this podcast, remember to subscribe, rate, and review. It really helps us to spread the love. Thank you for tuning in, and make sure you subscribe to this channel to get your weekly fix for all you spiritual gangsters. Any questions or comments, go to my site at taramagalski.com. Drop me a note. I'd love to hear from you. And stay tuned for next week. I got the good stuff.